and welcome to the Confident Healer podcast, YouTube version. I'm your hostess, Sharmila Mali. I'm also the creator of my 9-month Confident Healer Reiki training program. I hope you enjoy today's episode. And please, as always, like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Welcome to the Confident Healer podcast. I'm Sharmila Mali, your hostess and founder of the 9-month Confident Healer Reiki training program. So today we'll meet a beautiful soul who loves helping people who feel stuck or uninspired by life connect with their purpose so that they can cultivate clarity and contentment. She is an Akashic record reader and meditation instructor. After spending over a decade seeking her own purpose and finally finding it through the Akashic records, she finds great joy in bringing this magical perspective to others, helping them to find greater clarity and meaning in their own lives. So please welcome with a big warm hug, Meena Ruchi.
Hi, thank you, Sharmila. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. So tell me, so you have an interesting background because you have a great COVID story. So please, about how you got into the Akashic records.
No one's ever phrased it that way, but yeah, it's so true. So yeah, I can share a little bit about that. Basically, since I was a kid, I had like pretty bad anxiety, and I also was like deeply fascinated by purpose. I just wanted to know why I was here. And so I was kind of on this quest, this urgent quest to figure out what my purpose was. So as a teenager, like it was just my hobby to like take personality quizzes and read self-help books and dabble with like astrology and different kinds of meditation, anything that like had an inkling of purpose around it, or that really was basically like, you can figure out your purpose if you do this. I was all for it. And then when I went to college, my anxiety got really severe and I became addicted to my work. I was deeply burnt out. I had all kinds of health problems. And basically my whole goal in life was to get a job, because I had this like deep fear that if I didn't get a job, I would have no money. I would end up homeless and die. So that was my lifelong motivation. I know you're chuckling, and I'm like, it sounds
No, I'm
so
chuckling.
extreme.
No, I'm chuckling because I think we all feel that way. If we aren't working, earning money, paying for a roof over our head, we're
Yeah.
gonna die. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was weird because that was like, I thought that entire train of thought since I was like in elementary school. Like I would get home from
Wow.
school and be like, ooh, I
Wow.
kind of want to like eat something, or I kind of want to take a break. But I would be like, no, if you don't do your homework right now, then you're not going to pass this grade, like first grade. And if you don't go to first grade, you won't go to second grade. And then you won't go to middle school or high school or college. And then you won't get a job, and then you'll die. So I was like, so I better do my homework right fucking now because I don't want to die. So that like literal entire train of thought was like very clear and vivid in my head. And I don't know why, but I hope that that's not what like an average first grader is thinking about, because it's so wild to like remember that that was my thought process from that age. So
Wow.
so I really wanted to get a job, and that was my motivation like my whole life and all through college. And while I was in that kind of like dark, kind of confused space with the burnout and the anxiety and how severe everything became, that question that I had always wondered about, why am I here, took on a weird kind of dark and murky flavor. And it became, why am I here? I don't need to be here. And that despair and that lack of meaning, it basically just felt like everything I was doing, even though I was successful in my work and my studies, every time I would finish a project or turn something in or whatever, I would feel good for a few seconds. And then I would just be crushed by this wave of, oh my God, this is totally pointless. Like this is so pointless. It means nothing. And that I was just crushing, and it really took me to a low place of like, nothing I do matters. This is ultimately meaningless. And I didn't feel connected to a sense of purpose. And it was that fear of being homeless and dying that was stronger than the despair for me. So that's why I kept going. And I ended up graduating in May of 2020. So it's hilarious. The timing is so ridiculous. And so my whole life's goal to get a job now got put on pause because all the companies I was interviewing with went on a hiring freeze. So I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Just being a workaholic with no job and being done with school. I was like, I need something to kill the time. And because I'd always kind of dabbled in this like esoteric, magical, whatever world, I was like, I found this course on the Akashic records. I didn't think it was a real thing because it sounds like a joke. And I was like, whatever, I have literally nothing else to do, so I'll just do this. And I was blown away when it actually worked. And I was able to connect to a deeper sense of clarity and purpose, the thing that I had been looking for so long at that point. It was such a game changer for me. And through the records, experiencing potential in another avenue and just in life, like I could experience in my body what my life's potential felt like. And that really made me open my eyes, open my mind, and realize that this thing that I had been so sure was the only way to live, right? To go to school, get a job, and then that's the end, basically. There was another option, and I didn't have to die. And it was, it was just really, it just naturally dispelled that really limited, tight belief that I had. And it made me wonder what else is possible. And so from there, I kind of let that go. That's what gave me the strength to let go of what I had known my whole life was studying and doing this thing. And it gave me the strength to admit like what I had known for a long time, but was too scared to admit, which was, I don't want to do this thing that I've been doing all this time, and I want to do something else. And it was through connecting to that possibility through the records that allowed me to do that.
Wow, because it's interesting because I was like, wow, what was it? Just so it was just connecting to the records, to the Akashic records. But I was just wondering if there was like when you gave yourself a reading, or when you were, practicing with your other students in class, if there was like a message that you got that was just like, wow, I mean, I'm sure you
Yeah.
probably got many, but if there was just like one or
Yeah.
something that really like, oh, I guess I can do this, besides, I mean, connecting to it is very powerful. I'm not dismissing
Yeah.
that, but I'm also wondering, like, was there a message that you got?
Yeah, there was. So I can tell you about that.
Oh, thank you.
So when I first started like dabbling, just as soon as I could hear the records, all I was doing was asking about different job positions. I was
Wow.
like, let's just use this as a job search engine because people sometimes call it spiritual Google. So I was
Ra-
like,
oh my god, so brilliant, right?
so I was like, let me just literally use this the way I would use actual Google and just be like, what are the possibilities of this job? Like at this place. It was really specific. And it's, I think it's like great to like, you can do that. And it is such a clear illustration of how small my like idea of what was available for me was, because I wasn't even asking about different jobs. I was asking about the same type of job in different places. And so the type of job I was applying for at the time was technical artist. And so one day I was in the records and I was like, let me ask like a little bit of a broader question and ask about this career in general. So I asked, what are the possibilities of my artistic career? But instead of artistic, I accidentally said Akashic.
Oh,
I
I just got
know.
chills. Yeah.
I know it was like a total divine intervention Freudian slip.
Right?
What I experienced through the records, this was like my like cheesy cinematic moment that I wanted my whole life. That's what happened. So it was in the records, and it was just like big empty space, and above me there were clouds. And when I asked that question, there was like light, bright white light coming through the clouds and filling up the entire space around me. And I could feel the vibrance of that light, the radiance of that light inside me and outside me. And there was no separation between the two. And I had never felt raw potential like that ever. And I felt it in me. And I think that's what really got my attention was like, this is deeper than a thought. This is deeper than a wish. This is something else. And so experiencing potential for my life through the records like that, that is what really opened my eyes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was speechless. And then I heard the record say, we've been waiting for you to ask. And it was so touching and so sweet and hilarious because they were like, this bitch is not asking the right question. So they had to just intervene because, yeah,
Wow.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know that you could ask stuff like that. I didn't know that this work, was a possibility for me.
Wow. Yeah, that just really made me tear up because that's for somebody, because I was just thinking what you told me, like since you were in the first grade, you have been dealing with big life questions, something that a 6 to 7 year old shouldn't be thinking about, but for some reason, maybe it's your gonna sound like an older woman here. It's your generation. Maybe it's your generation, but it's and so that's just so profound that you had your spiritual Freudian slip and said
Mhm.
Akashic, and to have such an incredible shift of perspective about the potential of who you can be, of that you
Yeah.
can take ownership of your life, which kind of no one really tells you about, because if you're being told
Yeah.
that you have to, and you don't even know where you got it from, but I'm going to ask you a question because I feel like I might know a little bit about that. But I mean,
Yeah.
if you're thinking on your own since that age, I mean, what an incredible, and you're a child, like,
Yeah. It's
you
like
know
super weird kid, super neurotic kid. Like,
no, you're not no, you were not definitely not the only one. I know a lot of people who have children who are, yeah, who have crippling anxiety, and I feel like I think it's sort of it's inherited for sure, because maybe your parents, but so I'm just gonna I so my question is, because I just thought, do you have older siblings too,
I
or
have one older sibling
like
and one younger sibling.
okay, so you're in the middle. So, and how much older is your older?
Yeah, my older sibling is 4 years older than me.
Okay. Okay. Well, but I'm just wondering, so are your parents immigrants
Hmm.
and South Asian? I'm just gonna
Yeah,
go out
yeah,
on a
yeah,
limb here.
yeah. I know. Yeah, you can tell from my name and my skin and everything. It's like, yeah, my parents are from India.
So I'm just wondering, and because not all South Asian parents put that type of pressure on their children. And growing up, I'm from Nepal, and I'm actually an immigrant. Um, but that pressure of knowing that you have to go to school, knowing how important school is, I'm just wondering if you saw that in your oldest sibling, or if that's something they just said, Meena, you have to do good in school so you can get a good job, you
I
know?
think that must have been explicitly stated at some point. And I'm sure I heard them explaining that kind of trajectory of like, this is what you do, like to my older sibling, because I don't know if I don't think that my neurosis was a like response to how he went through school, but I I don't know, there was just this understanding from a young age that this is important, that education is the most important thing. And then I didn't realize this until pretty recently. I was like, "Oh yeah, like my parents would be like, it's your job, like school, getting good grades is your job." And
Mm.
I wasn't allowed to have a job in school because
Oh.
they were like, "No, school is your job. Like you don't have time for that." And so it was just like, yeah, there was there's a lot wrapped up there, but I think it was pretty clear. And like also from a young age, it was like I knew that college was the goal,
Yeah.
to get into the best college you could get into, and I knew that it was expensive. And so I
Mhm.
think like this like thing of like, oh, money and education and all of that, it was just so wrapped up and it felt so heavy and so big of like, you have to do this thing so you can maybe get a scholarship, and if you get a scholarship it'll be easier on your parents and stuff like that. And yeah, so I think it was just the weight of what they had done, of like, oh, they moved here and now you're here.
Mm.
And it was just this awareness that like all of the relatives that like in India, it's like they don't have the chance to do this. So it was kind of like you have to, because this is here. You have this opportunity, so you have to do it. And it didn't feel like there was ever a choice. Like there was no like, not even for a moment was I like, do I want to go to college? Should I
Right.
go to college? It was
No,
like,
it was
no, it was like, which college are you going to?
right.
Like, how good of a college can you get into? Like, how big can you flex basically by like the name of the school you can get into and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think like culturally, it was probably explicitly known, and also like deeply implicit, like through the actions, through how my parents carried themselves, through the things they said, through the things they didn't say, things like that. I think like implicitly it was conveyed probably all of the time that this is important, and that they wanted more than anything for us to be
Mm.
happy and
Mhm.
successful. And I
Mhm.
think for me, somewhere along the way, success and happiness got confused.
Right.
Yeah.
And that success can mean anything. It's
Hmm.
subjective. So yeah, I just feel like being able, part of being an adult in this world now is redefining who you are and what you want to do with your life, what success means to you, because it means something different for everyone. And so did you, I'm sorry, what was your degree in? Because it's fascinating too, even what it's called.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very
So
technical,
I have a master's of science in visualization,
which means
which means it
translate
sounds
that.
so perfect now, like for what I do.
Yes,
It sounds like, oh wow, that's like very cool. And I think the universe has a sense of humor. But
it definitely does.
basically that degree is animation and video game design. So it was like half art and half computer science.
Mm.
So yeah, I have a bachelor's and a master's in visualization. And I think it's so funny because if you think about that, like what that, and that's the thing, that degree, like when I was in school, it's like you can do a lot of different things. So there was like a wide variety of things you could do. It's like there's graphic design, video game design, animation, interactive stuff, all kinds of things. And the thing that tied it all together, it was under this like label, major visualization. And what you're doing in all of those different applications is taking something from your head, your imagination, that is unseen, and making it visible,
Hmm.
seeable for other people. And yeah, so it's about making the unseen seen and the invisible visible. And I feel like that's exactly what I do now with people through the Akashic
Yeah.
records. It's different. It's a
Yes.
different medium. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Like speaking it to them
Right.
instead of like drawing it, or, modeling it or whatever.
She said medium. I mean, come on, that's a big pun too.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Mm.
But yeah, I find that fascinating because I remember you told me, I was like, visualization, like what?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
that's kind of what you, but that's what art, that is what visual art is taking something unseen or anything like architecture, you're
Yeah.
taking what is in your head and putting it into the 3D world. So what you and I do is is it's something that, and people have been using, because I kind of see Akashic records or anybody that does this type of intuitive work like as an oracle. They're like, whereas people are coming to you for guidance and they're asking, what type of job should I get?
Mm.
Am I a healer?
Mhm.
Like, should I marry this person? Those types of questions. Oracles and shamans and medicine men, women, people have always been a part of culture. And along our industrialized evolution, maybe de-evolution, has, that part of us has been put to a side where it's like, well, I don't know if, like you said, like I don't know if this is real, but what the hell,
Mhm.
I can't,
Yeah.
there's a hiring freeze, I'm just gonna go for this. And so it's just, yeah, it's fascinating how we all come to this line of work. And
Yeah.
I just wanted, there's so many, we have so many similarities in common, because I wasn't that way when I was 5, but I have been I've been questioning, I had been questioning my existence as very much an existentialist when I was 14. Like,
Yeah.
why am I here? What is my purpose? And being emo, as most teenagers are, moody, having like, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't even know what
Mhm.
it got a little dark, and it got a little
Yeah.
dark in college too, because you're under stress, you have deadlines, and I remember being in a writing with a friend in my late 20s, and we came upon a bus stop, and she was like, oh, to be that age. And they were like middle schoolers. And I just thought, I was thinking to myself, like, hell no, I don't want to go back to that age.
Yeah.
Shit. Like, I was at
Sounds like
that
a
point.
terrible
Yeah. When I was in middle school, I was thinking about college. I was thinking about like, and it was stressful. I was like, that was not a fun time, especially being that age. You're awkward, and, you start developing, and, and that age is just it's a hard age. And I'm
idea.
glad that I didn't grow up with like social media, because I peer pressure then was hard, but I
Mhm.
can't imagine what it's like now. But anyway, that's a whole different other topic of conversation. I'm wondering, you, part of what you had said is that you help people with their confidence, to find their purpose and live their purpose. And I'm just wondering, what, I mean, that's a pretty big shift for someone with your background of, you know getting a
Mhm.
master's. And you know like you said, college is expensive, and we all
Yeah.
know, like, if
Mhm.
I do the math 3 years ago, like how expensive that is. And um like, to switch gears like that, like, what gave you the confidence to then um pursue this as your line of work?
Yeah. And that was, I think about it now and I'm like, I am shocked that I did that, because who in their right mind would do that? I found the records 2 weeks after I graduated with my master's.
Wow,
So,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, like, the universe was not wasting any time. I feel like I
Good.
had to get that degree. It was, like, a lifelong dream of mine to get a degree like that, and I did it, and then once I got it, I was like, I knew even before I found the records, I knew, like, I was done. I was like, "I'm getting this, and then I'm done." Like, I do not wanna do this, like, and it felt, and I had known that for years. I was like, "If I go get a desk job, even if it's at a dream company, and I'm doing this thing that I always thought I wanted, I will be very unhappy." And I knew that. And so I had known for a long time, but I couldn't act on it. I couldn't really admit it. because it felt so wrong to not want that thing. So it was like, I can't even say it. I can't even think it to myself because it just felt so wrong to do that and to not want this, and it felt like I was being ungrateful, And
Wow.
I was like, oh gosh, like my parents have done all this stuff. They've paid like
Mm,
through the first degree. I like did this second degree. It's like, I can't let everybody down like that.
mm.
And what am I going to do? Like, I'll be a total failure. And it's not hard to imagine. I have a fear of failure, and that from a young age too. So it's like, yeah, that like whole motivating force was there. And so I think what happened when I connected to the records, when I had that experience I told you about, for me, it was such a deep relief. And it was like, okay. And I also, after I asked the accidental question,
Right.
I did ask, what are the possibilities of this like artistic career if I do this other work that I had been trying to do? And the feedback I got back from the records was like, I can tell you, they're so dramatic. Especially like when I was starting, they were like very clear and pretty sassy with me. So what I saw when I was like, okay, what are the possibilities of this technical artist career? I saw like it was a small office. The lights were off. There were two monitors in front of me.
Mm.
I was sitting at this desk, and the only light was like the blue glow of the monitors on my face. And I was like slumped over dead at my desk.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. But it was like they illustrated that a little bit cartoony too. It was like my tongue was hanging out.
Oh.
So it was like, it got my attention, but I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, I knew it, but like it was weird to experience it through the records. And I think that's why when I had the like accidental thing and I felt the potential of that, I was like, ooh, that felt like, okay, I didn't make that up, because the thing of like, oh, I'm like dead at a desk, I was like, that kind of just sounds like what, like, yeah, that is what I imagine it to be. That doesn't feel like it's necessarily coming from the records. I was like, is this my mind? I don't really know. But yeah, feeling the potential, that was different. And I was like, oh, like I could believe it as not just coming from my mind, I guess.
Right.
And so I trusted it. And so I guess what gave me the confidence to do that was I knew, I knew deep, deep, deep for sure that if I pursued this Akashic work more deeply, that it had potential. And so I knew it. And I was like, you can't argue with that. Like I could feel it. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that this other thing didn't have as much potential. And so really it was, and I think what was the most empowering thing, it was like all the records did was showing me the amount of potential that was there, and really the amount of alignment that was there for me. It's not that that type of work has no potential for anyone. It was just for me, it wasn't vibrant. And the Akashic Records doing this as work was extremely vibrant. And so it was so empowering because they were like, now you know what potential is there. And now to make that real, it's all in your hands. It just depends on what you do. So they were like, if you want that potential to become real, you just have to walk towards it one step at a time. And so that's what gave me the confidence, was like, I know that it's possible now. And that was something I'd never imagined. I didn't know that any kind of radiant happiness or success or fulfillment was available until that moment.
Mm.
And so I knew it. And so, because when you know something like that for sure, that it has potential, and the only thing in between that potential getting realized and it not being realized is you, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'll just do the thing. I'll just
Wow.
do it. And so that is really still what motivates me now, because it's a long process. I'm still like learning this. I'm still growing my work and doing this one step at a time. But yeah, especially in the first year or 2 years, it was like, I felt like I was at a crossroads every day of like, did you really just throw all of that away? Like, are you sure? So every morning I would wake up and be like, are we doing this Akashic like game today, like one more day, or are we like going back to reality now? And I was like, okay, I'll give it one more day. So it was like, I felt like I was at that crossroads, that split, because it's a huge
Right.
divergent like
Yes.
thing. So I felt like I was there for at least 1 year every day, like, okay, are we doing this one? Or are we just going back home?
Mm.
And yeah, so that's how I did it. And I think it was just being connected to the potential that
Just
allowed me to
reminding, right. Yeah. Just reminding yourself of every day. I love that. Every day waking up, and because I'm just wondering, like, if you have anxiety, did that give you anxiety?
Mhm.
Or just, or, and then maybe making the choice of like, okay, we're going to do this one more day. And then phew, anxiety was off the table. Like,
I think the anxiety was such a normal part of my life
mm,
that it's like I didn't really, that wasn't a factor. It wasn't like, oh, this Akashic stuff is giving me anxiety. I was like, everything I do gives me anxiety. So, like, whatever, we'll just keep doing this. But I noticed once I graduated, I did like immediately, like, my like level of anxiety went down because I wasn't working 24 hours a day.
mm,
So I think that kind of coming into, and like, yeah, for me, like I'm grateful for that like contained slow experience that happened during COVID because I did not have a choice. Like I
right.
couldn't go work 20 hours a day somewhere because they're like that wasn't an opportunity. So I like, it was nice to just be able to have the time and space to do this. And yeah, I was living at home, so like that was another thing. I could feel the weight of like my parents being like, SMH, like this kid, like, I can't believe it there. And, so there was like doubt coming from there. There was like this pressure. It was like they would sometimes say stuff, they sometimes wouldn't say stuff, but it was like, I know I'm disappointing them deeply. Like, I've done the worst thing I could do,
Mm.
basically. And so to wake up every day, make that decision, and go downstairs and be like, hey guys, like,
Still doing it.
yep,
Want a
still,
reading?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was like,
So
it was weird.
what do they do? What do they think now?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know. I'm like, I think they have acclimated to it. I think they're like, yeah, this is what she does now. I don't know. Even now, they think that this has potential, but I'm
Oh,
okay with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I don't
amazing.
know.
Yeah. I mean, because why not? It's what, is this what makes you happy? Right.
I think that's what they say, but they say it in that way where it's like, this is what makes you happy. Like, okay. And it's like, I wish you would just go get a job though. And I don't think they really understood the depth of like the health crisis that I was in doing that work, like the depth of the burnout, the toll it was taking on my like spiritual, mental, and physical body. I don't think they really got that fully because if they had seen it really clearly, I don't think it would be surprising that I don't want to go back to that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It was like, yeah, it literally was like recovering from like illness and addiction. So, yeah, but I completely understand their point of view too, because it's like they're immigrants. And so it's like the golden path is to just work hard and,
Hmm.
keep your head down and, build a life from nothing. And I totally respect that. And I'm like, I don't want to do that though. I want
Right.
to do it differently.
Well, you're just doing it a different way. You're doing it your way.
Yeah.
The
I'm
way
just doing
that's
something that I enjoy instead of something I don't enjoy because
right.
it still takes effort.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, our entrepreneurship, right? Yeah, definitely takes a lot of effort. And I noticed on your Instagram you do this really cool thing with the Akashic records called, now I forgot the record. What is it called?
Record time.
Record time. And I just thought, oh my God, that is so funny. I love the pun. You have a great sense of humor.
Thanks. Thank
So
you.
tell us about record time.
Yeah. Tomorrow is actually the 100th episode, I think.
You've been,
Yeah.
so you do it every day
I
or
do it
5 days?
every week.
Once a
Yeah.
week. Wow.
Mhm. So it's been going for like roughly 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So record time is it's a weekly Akashic experience where we explore simple and mysterious themes through the lens of the Akashic records. And basically what it is once a week I open the records, and it's changed over the years how I do it, the process, but basically we're exploring a question or a theme. And so yeah, there's like tons of videos now on different topics like trust and deepening your capacity for joy and connecting to your purpose, and what to do with anger and what is the point of meditation and all these kinds of things. So there's like a huge, like wide variety of topics that we've kind of dabbled with, explored through the records there, and it's a really fun thing.
It sounds, yeah, I know. I watched a couple. I was like, and I love the way you're like, it's record time. I'm like, oh, it just tickles me. It's so funny. It's so funny. Such a great name.
Thanks. The records came up with it, so I
Oh,
won't take credit. Yeah,
well,
they're clever.
they're very, very clever. And so tell me about the meditation instructor. Like, have you always been, because, I mean, that's kind of part of our culture background is, or, meditation is.
Yeah. So the meditation thing, I think I'd always been fascinated with it. I was like, and I think because it is part of the culture, I think it was something that I was like, oh, I feel connected to, Indian heritage, my like roots a little bit, like exploring these kinds of things. And like my mom got really into meditation when I was in middle school. And
Mm,
before that, it's like my dad's side of the family, like my dad and his dad are like really traditional sometimes with how they do stuff. So it had always been in my world to some degree. And I remember like as a kid, my dad would like, I think it was like, yeah, he had like old tapes, like Yoga Nidra tapes, and he would like play them. And I remember one was like every couple minutes after you like go through the relaxation, it was like, don't fall asleep, don't fall asleep. It would say that. And I just thought that was so hilarious because I was like, I am pretty sleepy guy, like old guy on this tape.
right.
So yeah. So like, and that was like, a kid. I don't know if I had even started school at that point. So I had tried all these different things. When my mom got into it, there were all different kinds of meditations that she was doing, and I thought it was fun. And then we would sometimes listen to this like guru who would come and like do like lectures or discourse once a year, and there would be different types of meditation there, and like subtle body relaxation and
Mm,
visualization and all kinds of stuff like that. And then when I got to college, I was like, I haven't done this in a while. And I never did it consistently. So I was like, maybe this will be nice. And I started with one of those apps, like the little meditation apps. And I
hmm
was like, yeah, I'll like figure it out. And then I tried doing it every day, and it didn't help that much, I think, with the apps. And then later, once I found the records, I I was like opening the records every day, and that became my daily practice. And
Nice.
then maybe 8 months after I found the records, I was so dramatic as always. I like woke up in the middle of the night one night and I was like, you're an Akashic record reader that doesn't know how to meditate. That's super weird. You need to figure this out.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And so I found like in the middle of the night, it was like a total fever dream. I like had been following this one meditation teacher for a while. I was like very familiar with their work. And I remembered somehow, I don't even remember that they were like, I have like 2 spots open for my private one-on-one thing, like teaching meditation. I was like, you need to apply for that. And so I like did that in the middle of the night. And then when I woke up, I was like, did that happen? Because I like submitted the application through their website. And so I didn't get a confirmation that anything was received. It wasn't in my sent box from my email. And I was like, I don't know. That's super weird. I was like, do I like send them a message saying like, hey, did I apply to that? I was like, that'll look real weird. So we'll just leave it. And a few days later, they responded to me and like I was like, oh, okay, I guess I did do that. And so I ended up working with this teacher um one on one for 6 months, and that's where I like learned how to meditate
Hmm.
for real. And that's when I really got into a consistent practice. And so I think it was the Akashic records coupled with meditation about a year after I had found the records and decided to do this. It was at that point that I realized, oh, my anxiety's gone.
Wow. Wow.
And it was such a subtle realization because it was slow. It took time for it to dissipate
Right.
completely.
Right.
And I think it was those two things together that really did it for me. It was connecting to my purpose through the records and cultivating a deeper practice of just connecting to myself without the records and
Hmm.
doing that daily. And yeah, it was really intense, those 6 months working with him. But yeah, it was a game changer for me. And I was like, again, astonished when I was like, oh yeah, you don't feel scared right now. That's crazy. And I was like, I don't think I've felt scared for a while, actually. I was like, when did that even happen? It was such a slow and effortless thing. And I think that's what fascinated me too, was like, I wasn't trying to heal my anxiety doing any of this stuff because I didn't know that that was a thing you could do. I just had thought like that's the way life is. Like that's how I'll
Wow.
be until I die. So I wasn't trying to do anything to fix it, but it went away on its own. I was like, wow, effortlessly healing like crippling lifelong anxiety. That's amazing. So yeah, so that's why I have both of those like two things together. It's because I think they're a powerful duo.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're a walking testament to it, and just you applying that, just because, you're like, I'm a Akashic Records reader who doesn't know it. I'm like, well, yeah, but there's so many different types of it. But anyway, you figured it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just interesting that self-talk, right? Like how we talk to ourselves and we don't even realize it. And sometimes, that self-talk prompted you to wake up and like get online and okay, well maybe I should figure this out, and finding a teacher and
Mhm.
then going to sleep and like, did that just happen? And then, working with that person, that this whole journey of yours, just incredible, like how amazing you are, how amazing you've always been. And like, kind of dealing with this since you were 5 and figuring it out as an adult, like you did some serious adulting these past 3 years. So,
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was like a learning curve for sure. Just trying to figure everything out
but
and doing something that I had never seen modeled. And I think
right,
that's one thing that also made it hard was I felt like I was doing like something so extreme and so taboo simply because I did not know a single person that I'd met in real life who did their own thing, who would diverge from that like super traditional like path.
right, right.
So,
Yeah, I completely, I know, that was my, I mean, for years I struggled with that. Struggled with, I do something so esoteric, Reiki, and like, what, feeling really uncomfortable. It took me many, many, many years to feel confident talking about it. And that's exactly why I started, doing this podcast to give people like, hey, it's normal. I mean, there's so many podcasts out there that talk to other types of, healers. But yeah, that because I feel like, well, there's room for me too to get people to like, hey, this is normal. This is, if this is something you're considering doing, that if that's your calling, absolutely answer it. And we're so glad. I mean, I think the world is a better place when we're all answering that divine calling, whatever the divine calling is. Maybe for some people it is visualization in graphic
mhm.
design and creating. I love cartoons. I grew up on cartoons. Thank God we have
Yeah,
all types of artists.
yeah.
You're healing artist.
Yeah. It's been such a like interesting and meandering path. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Yeah, you were talking about confidence and like, yeah, the confidence to be able to do this. And I think the way that that like really is like immersed in my work now when I work with other people is I think when you can connect to yourself, connect to your purpose and your gifts and your potential, and really be in communion with the fact that, like, you do have a unique purpose, you do have natural talents, and you do have value. You are a valuable being, not just in what you do, but in who you are, how you be in the world is valuable. I think when people are like have that reflected back to them through an Akashic record reading or just through a person that, they can listen to and trust, when you can believe your friends when they say stuff like that, I think that does inspire those seeds of confidence. And from there, that place of like, okay, I think it's possible. Like, could it be? And it's just like playing with that possibility. Could it be true that I have value to offer? I think from there and
I know.
acting on it one step at a time is how confidence grows.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely, mine were minuscule baby steps, nano baby steps, but
Mhm.
yeah.
And
But
it
yeah,
still works. It's like that works. It'll get you there.
it does. It does. The doing.
I do think that, yeah, like being able to listen to and connect to yourself, connect to those deeper spaces of intuition and guidance and clarity. That's the like, it's like a priceless gift, to be able to do that. And I remember what it was like before I felt connected to that. And now I think about it, I'm like, how did you make any decisions before that? Like, how did you do anything without like feeling connected to the self, the like deeper knowing, the intuition, without being able to. I remember there was a time where like I was getting a lot of signs externally, and that
What
still sometimes happens and it's fun.
what kind of signs?
It was they I'm like a word girl, so
Mm,
like it wasn't like there would be, different birds and like whatever, but sometimes there would be like literal billboards with whole sentences on them that were like exact like responses to a question I had, or like something that just I needed some encouragement or something. It would be
mm,
really specific and weird. And sometimes like it would be like turning on the radio for the first time in 5 years and hearing a really specific, super strange song that
right.
was like exactly what I needed. And it was like weird. So, yeah, a lot of it, I think like I like to like play games with with the records while I'm driving, like on long drives, because it's like I have nothing else to do, and there are like billboards, there is music, but even so, it's like that's a great time to play, I think. But yeah, even other times, so it's like words would always like kind of find me, or I always say half price books is my church. So it's like finding the right book at the right time. That's a thing that would work for me, but now it feels so much more integrated where it's like I can see the signs and enjoy them and delight, but I don't, that's not where I'm getting my like clues from, so to speak. It's like
Right.
it is from a more integrated internal space, which feels much more clear and direct, where it's like I don't have to wait for a billboard. I can
Right.
like feel it or sense it or hear it
Right.
inside me, which is nice. It's more efficient that way.
Right. And exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and people do ask for signs, like show me a sign, because
Yeah.
they need more validation. Like, okay, and they still don't believe it. And I know,
Mhm.
because I still do that sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I need a sign. I think I need another sign, because
Yeah.
it's hard to sometimes, when you're inside
Hard
of
to
your.
trust.
Right. It's hard to trust. And yeah, especially if it's a big life decision, you want to, or at least me, I'm just going to speak for myself, you want to make sure that or like, okay, is this really right? Or just
Mhm.
sitting with it and integrating it and executing it on your own timeline, right? Which is
Mhm.
brings us back to Interstellar. But anyway, um, oh gosh, there was something else I wanted. Oh, so I just want to let people know too that intuition doesn't mean like just because you're intuitive doesn't mean you have to, do this type of work. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, people, artists, in business, everyone gets inspired and listens to, oh, like, oh, this is how I should approach this and teach this. If you're a fifth grade teacher, like you can tap into
Mhm.
your intuition and use it in every way of your life, not just like, oh, I'm intuitive. Unless you want to go that way, like I should do readings or I should do some type of
Yeah.
healing work, right? Like,
Yeah. It's nice. I think like intuition, like you can think about it simply as being connected to a sense of clarity, feeling clear, being able to navigate your day-to-day life with clarity instead of getting stuck at every decision point where, and I say that because I was there. It's like I couldn't make a decision to save my life. And it was hard. Everything was like, I don't know. My like mantra at the time was, I don't know. You could ask me anything. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Where do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. So it's like having the reprieve of like, okay, I can make a decision and not regret it in 5 seconds.
right,
That I think is a great way to be connected to clarity, and that I think is intuition in motion, is being able to navigate your life with clarity, a sense of trust in yourself and your own
hmm,
capacity to choose and to do things in a way that feels good, that you will not regret, and that feels aligned. So yeah, I think like, yeah, intuition is not only for people who want to make a job out of it. I
right,
think it's like the lost sense, it's like reconnecting to that last sense. And it's just like seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, hearing. It's like if you can sense from within, that's just another source of information that can help you, empower you to make clear decisions.
right, right. I mean, there's so many ways to be creative and come up with
Mhm.
ideas, and intuition is just one way. And so just to now segue back into my other question about like, so how is learning boundaries with this type of work? Was that something that your meditation and Akashic records teacher taught you, or like, and then applying that?
I think that was something that my teacher talked about, and it like was something so innate to me of like, this is important. Like I can feel the responsibility that is integral. It's like innate to this work. It's like if you want to do this, there is a responsibility to use it in a benevolent way. Like do not do harm is my number one thing.
Hmm.
And I think it's really easy, it would be so easy to say I'm an Akashic record reader and just to tell people what to do from this place of authority.
Right.
I think humility is so important. It's the most important thing, to know that like, yes, I might perceive this to be coming from the Akashic records, but no human being is a 100% clear channel. And to remind the person you're reading for
Hmm.
of that,
Right.
and making sure that their sense of personal autonomy,
Hmm.
their free will, their sense of power is the number one thing for them. It's like, I can say anything, but it's your choice. Like, you do
Right.
not have to listen to this. And I would invite you, I would really implore you, whatever I'm saying, check it with your own self. How does that feel to you? Did that land for you? Did it not? That's important to me. And to also never open the records without consent. Like,
Right.
don't do that. I don't think I can open the records without someone's consent. So yeah, being really intentional and respectful of people when you do this work. That's something that my teacher did talk about. And it's something that I think I've taken really deeply into myself and my work. It's like that is important, to be gentle, to be consensual, because I think we've seen, and I think that's why there's this kind of like fear sometimes when you talk about what you do, or when people think of astrology or psychics or whatever, they get scared because it's like, I don't want to know something,
Right.
that I don't want to know. And
Right.
I don't want that. And there's like a fear because I think people have abused and misused it in the past. And you can see it even now in different cultures. It's like going to the astrologer and they will tell you what to do, or
Right.
even that like doom and gloom of like, this is in this house, and so you can't do this right now, or you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't marry this person. It's like, no, like I respect your free will more than anything.
Right.
And so yeah, that piece of like being humble as a reader, reminding the other person that their free will is number one. And even in the way that I read, it's like I don't get any information unless they ask. So the whole reading is driven by their questions, by their
Mm-hmm.
inquiries. It's like I'm not going to open the records and just spew out stuff
Right.
that you don't want to know and don't care about. It's like if you ask, then there will be a response.
Right.
And sometimes too, and I think that's what drew me to the records too, is that it felt like a protected system. They won't tell you something unless you ask. And sometimes you can ask and they won't answer.
Yes.
That felt safe to me.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that was a big, big draw for me, was because I was scared of going to psychics or astrologers and anyone, because I was like, I don't want to hear something I don't want to hear. Because once someone says something like that, like it can stick, and it can like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it can haunt people for their whole lives. So I was like, I don't want to, I'm scared. Like, I
Right.
don't want to, I don't know what they're going to tell me. And so that felt nice of like, oh, you can ask a question, they'll respond. And if you ask a question that is irrelevant, or it wouldn't be empowering or useful or uplifting for you to know right now, then they will not say anything.
Mm.
They will say, not right now,
Right. I know.
or to be silent.
That happened. Um, I think that happened once where they said, this is not the time. We can't give you this answer right now because it's a little bit too much. And I was like, oh, okay. That had never happened. And I was really shocked by that. And there was a lot, I felt, I'm just wondering too, if you ever, like, sometimes people ask like very heavy questions, and I
Mhm.
feel that pressure of like, oh my God, I don't know what they're gonna say, but whatever they say, I have, I'm gonna say it. And I have to, that's where I have to just really trust the information and put my whatever aside, whatever I think aside, like my own
Mhm.
anxiety about like, oh shit, why'd I have to ask that? Damn it. Okay.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, I'm just here to relay the message.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I've been there before where I'm like, like, I'm not qualified to answer that. Like,
Right.
what? And so when that happens, I'm reminding them, like, take this with a grain of salt.
Right.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not a this. I'm not a that. And this is just a perspective.
Right.
Take it, have a pack of saltines
Right.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Cause yeah, like I think like at the end of the day, it's like, don't put all of your power into something outside of you.
Right.
And just remember, like, I think it's like empowering the person to trust themselves. It's like,
Hmm.
I can say this, but what do you think?
Right.
That's
What do you
real
want to do with that information? Yeah. And
Mhm.
and they always, I'll say that, and then the records will also give a follow-up, like, and they will say the same thing, like, take this. This is just one perspective. This is one timeline. You have the choice to.
Yeah.
And I just, as a reader, that is, I think that's what's so empowering. For me, it's sometimes still a little bit challenging, because you're just like, when they start asking some of the harder questions, it's like, okay, because they're asking you, and there's such a responsibility too, like you said,
Mhm.
and you just have to be humble. And if the records aren't going to say it, I'm going to say it, like, okay, this is a perspective. You still have a choice to make.
Yeah.
And whether it resonates or not, that's up to you, but this is pure information that I'm sending you, and do what you will with it.
Yeah. I think that's something that I try to convey, is that this is not pure information that's coming
Mm,
through,
mm,
because it is, no matter how clear I
mm.
am, how good I get at this. it is always coming through my brain and my mouth, which is limited and it's
Mm,
biased. Even if I have the best intentions, it's like it's gonna be distorted to some degree.
mm.
So check that with your own self. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And two, it's like, I think it's easy to get caught up with the records of like, oh, this is coming from this like elevated place.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, it's easy to put that on a pedestal and give your power to that. And so, really, I think a more helpful way to look at what I do is like, instead of yes, I perceive it as like receiving information, relaying information from the Akashic records. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It's like, this is a perspective. Is it helpful? Is it not? If it's
Right.
helpful, great. If it's not, let it go. And I think, like, yeah, resisting the temptation to get too caught up in the magic and mystery of it. And just remember, like, this is just a person saying something to me.
Right.
And my perspective and feeling is just as valid as whatever they're saying. Like,
Right.
and that's what matters more.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, like, I've received readings that way where it's like, it feels so off and so annoying and so horrible, and I can't believe that that's what came through whenever I was asking a question. That's what, like, the other person told me, that that is what incites clarity. It's like
Mm-hmm.
bad readings can be extremely clarifying too, of like, because it hits you, they say something that they think is like, it feels true and clear to them, but it just doesn't land, and it
Right.
feels so crunchy and so wrong and so gross that it's like, oh, almost by process of elimination, you're like, oh, well, I know it's not that.
Right.
So what is it? It's this.
Right.
Like, okay. So yeah, sometimes getting a perspective that clarifies your no, what
Right.
it is not, is very supportive, even though it's
Yeah.
not
It,
maybe what you were looking for.
right. Right. And that's interesting you say that, because it's like, well, maybe that information is given to you so that you can come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
You know,
And so
like, I
you can
mean,
experience what it is to trust yourself
mm,
over someone else
right.
too. Like,
Right.
oh, wait. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so empowering. So any parting words of wisdom about purpose and confidence?
Hmm. You are a deeply valuable being. No matter what you do, you have value. And purpose is just a way for you to express more of yourself and that inherent value into the external world.
Hmm. Wow, thank you. I'm just wondering, did you have your Akashic records open this whole time, or?
No, I don't
Oh,
have the records open right now.
oh wow. That was an amazing message. Thank you so much. And so how can so you have a free gift, and you also do your weekly
Record time.
record time. I was like, I don't know why I see record minute. It has to do with time, but so how can when do you do your record time, and tell us about the free gift?
Yeah. So record time is once a week, and I always share it with my newsletter peeps. And it's also on my website. So if you go to my website on the blog, you'll be able to find all of them there. But yeah, the newsletter is the best way to connect with me. And that's where I just send everything right to you. It's like a little hub of Akashic goodness, is what I
Mm,
call it. So um, yeah, so that's there. The website has a bunch of like goodies. And if you're wanting to dip your toes into it, I have a free guided visualization channeled from the records for free on my website, if that calls to you. And it's all about connecting to your heart's desires, which I think is a really sweet place to kind of start to deepen your connection to yourself.
awesome, awesome. So yes, you can connect with Meena on her website, meenaruchi.com, and on Instagram at Meena Ruchi Magic. And it's spelled MEENARUCHI magic, or .com. And this will all be on the show notes. on theconfidenthealer.net. So you can reach out to her there. And I just thank you so much for all your time today going over. Thank you. I was just like, no, I want to talk. I was like, you got two
I know,
Akashic
it was
Records
so
reader.
fun. Yeah, yeah, I'm glad we got to nerd out a little bit. That was fun.
Thank you so much for being here, Meena, and sharing your amazing self and your incredible, amazing gifts. And thank God that we're like, okay, I'm just going to look this up. Love it. Love it. You follow that nudge, you followed something was guiding you. So just so grateful that you're doing what you're doing and providing, being that light in the world that we all need. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was such a delight. I appreciate you.
Me too. I appreciate you so much. So, and thank you for listening today on The Confident Healer. Like I said, everything about Meena will be in the show notes, so please connect there to get in touch with her. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next time on The Confident Healer. My name is Sharmila Molly. Bye.